this is Chuck from Monocoque Metalworks. Today we're going to talk about the panels and pieces we can provide to help you restore your original bonnet. Now there's a lot to talk about here, so we're going to break this one up into 3 parts. But you're definitely going to want to watch all 3 parts because there's nothing better than keeping your original bonnet. That should always be option 1. You might be looking at some rusted and mangled mess right now thinking that's just not an option for me. But after you see what we can do for you, I think you're going to have a different opinion, and it's going to be something that you can tackle with our help. So part 1 is going to look at the bonnet flanges that are glued in. We can provide everything for all the 6-cylinder and V12 E-types, any E-type out there. And we're also going to talk about custom pieces, custom flanges that are a little bit wider to help you get out of trouble, or if you need them, these special flanges for the early welded louver bonnets, which do have the flanges spot welded on like this. Part 2, we're going to talk about the standard replacement panels. You've got your headlight diaphragms, mouth tray, mud shields. We make everything for the inside of all bonnets. You got the support member here. Here's some little horn brackets. And then part 3, we're going to talk about custom repair panels that we can make for you based on your specific problems. You send in some photos, we talk about it on the phone, and then we make some repair pieces. Here's some stuff for the bottom of wings, and then look at this, we've got some special pieces for the lower valance, corner of the center section. There's a lot to go over, I told you. So, definitely want to watch all 3 parts. Let's get into it. Okay, part 1, flanges. We make all the flanges for all E-type bonnets, and we replace all the flanges whenever we do a bonnet here. Now, you're probably thinking, hey, I have the flanges. I don't need the flanges. Well, I'm sure you do, but they probably look like this. And what we figured out over the years was we couldn't restore a set of original flanges with the shop rate in the amount, for the amount of money that a set of new flanges costs, which, I don't know, maybe we ought to charge more for the flanges. But by the time, look at this. This is very typical. These are all the flanges for one car. They're all mangled up. They're covered in grease and oil. That's why I've got my gloves on. Still got the glue on. There's rust. There's everything. Bent, rust. I think there's a couple missing. But by the time you scrape off all the glue, clean them up, sandblast them if you have a bead blaster. If you don't, just forget it. You end up, I've restored many sets of these, but again, I have a power hammer that I can run them through and smooth them out, shrink or stretch them, get them all into shape. You might not have that machinery, and that would make it even worse. So as you can see, here's a ton of leftover flanges that we haven't used. This one here is actually from an NOS bonnet. It was brand new. But here's a bunch of old flanges. See where people have tried to put the bonnet together wrong, and see these 3 holes are, I don't know if you can really see that, but these 3 holes are moved up. Here's somebody that's moved this piece up. You want to get all this stuff lined up right where it needs to go. So, I suggest a set of all new flanges. This is a new flange kit for a 6-cylinder E-type. It comes with 12 flanges, 2 filler panels, and 4 of these little brackets. All right? So, let's show you where they go on the actual bonnet itself. First off, you've got your flanges here that go up front, and this is a center section that, it's a Series 2 center section. I was working on it years ago, and I was starting to get underway, and to be honest, I kind of got spooked. I think it's a little twisted, and so I put it aside and started working on another one, and it's just been sitting around ever since. So it's blasted and cleaned up. We're just using this to show you where things go. Here's your front flange. It's got 5 holes, kind of looks like a ski. It goes right in there. You'll notice this has been blasted bare, and because it's been sitting around in here for a few years, even though we are climate controlled, you can start to see where the pitting of the rust has started to rust again just a little bit, and it's perfect. It shows us a little map of where the flanges used to be. I have put out a half-hour video on how to glue a bonnet, exactly how to do it. So I'm not going to get into all that here, but let me just tell you, if you try to say, oh, I can see where the flange was and glue it, never works. Don't do that. Go watch the video. Anyway, here's the front flange for the inner valance. It goes up there. It's got 5 holes. Then you've got on the left-hand side, you've got a long piece right there. This does not look like it fits, but it does. You want to, see it's sitting on the part there. There you go. You want to make sure that you stick to this shape because this is the right shape. And again, all of that gets discussed in the other video. All right? Then in the front, you've got this here. Goes like that for the headlight diaphragm. And then back here, this is what we call the heater flange because it's right next to the heater hole. That goes back there. Now, these are all going to be up about 1/8 of an inch with glue in there. This heater flange reminds me that here's an original panel that goes here like this. This is what happens with the flanges. The bonnets were assembled in either bare metal or a real light coating of like a shipping primer after they were made. And so what happens is wherever the flanges are bolted on, there's no paint in there or very little and they rust. See how this is like that? And then you can see here's an original flange we'll throw down. This one here goes like that. And then you've got rust on these panels and real bad surface rust on the back side of the flanges. Now, this thing we call the heater flange is our most common flange. People call for this all the time. And we will sell you singles if you just want to go that way. You can buy any one you want. Usually this thing, I don't know if you can see there, it's rusted through. And that's because you've got this big fat area there mashed in where moisture gets in and stays in. So that's my little speech about that. All right, so that's where they go. On the other side, you've got the same thing, except because your inner valance is, you can go over there. I forgot to tell you that. This goes here like that. All right, this is a fancy one. Then this goes up here. This goes here, and this goes here, like that. All right. Actually, you can pan over. We've got standing up there a early 61 welded louver bonnet, but I didn't want to do a discussion about the glued-on flanges with a welded bonnet. But it's pretty much the same. The flanges are a little bit thicker and different. We can provide those. You got to call about those because I want to discuss exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it because we take a couple different approaches there. But there you go with those. So, the next thing I want to talk to you about is how the wing flanges go in. Put these back up here. Put these back up here for a minute. Now, this is the skin of a wing. When we're restoring bonnets, this is kind of how it goes. We take the flanges out, we restore the skin. You can see we've done a lot of hammer and dolly work to this. This is a very early skin for a 61. You see it's kind of a two-piece. We don't need to get into all of that. But what I did want to do was show you that here's your wing flanges. They go in here like this. This is also a very common flange we get calls about. And we have a full kit with the whole bonnet, or we have a kit with just the wing flanges because they tend to rust more because they're down lower. But this flange here gets glued in, and then up top, you've got this bracket that's spot welded here and spot welded here, like that. Get out of your way there. All right. And then down bottom, we give you this piece. This goes right in here like this. It's spot welded to the flange. And then down here, what you'll do, we give you excess. You'll trim this, cut it down, and then you'll run a stitch with a MIG right along there. And that's exactly how they did it at the factory. And the reason they are welded in top and bottom was that once they switched from the welded flanges to the glued flanges, they really quick found out that they would come unglued down here and like flap in the wind going down the road. So that's why that flange is welded top and bottom. All right? Now, the one flange on the bonnet, or the 3 flanges that we don't make, are these rear giant, what I call stiffening ribs. This is a piece that is pressed in a mold with a press that is big and has a lot of power. I could try to reproduce this in a more traditional way, in multiple pieces, welding it together. It would just take too long. So whenever we need one of these, we recycle an original, and there's a lot of dead bonnets that have come through here. So for example, here's one. Doesn't look too pretty at the moment, but it's just got some light surface rust. We will dissect off this piece and use that. If you need one of these, give us a call. I don't have a very big supply, but I can try to help out. The other thing that people call about are the same rib that goes on for the wing. We also don't make this, but we have a ton of these. We must have 50 dead wings around here, and I haven't thrown them out because these are very useful. When you get an aftermarket wing, this piece is wrong. It has too much curve to it by a lot, and it's virtually impossible for you to reshape this at home. So when you do get an aftermarket wing, I recommend dissecting these out of your original wings, taking these out of the new wings, and putting your originals into the old wing. It will save you a hell of a lot of trouble. All right? Now, when you are installing the wings and gluing them and all that, and again, go back to the bonnet about how to glue them and put everything together, but you're going to get everything assembled before you glue it. And again, like I said, your flanges are going to be up about 1/8 of an inch. See this? I haven't finished the work here, so. And actually, this just reminded me, I wanted to do this on the other side. So let's switch again. See, here is another reason why you don't. See how this kind of doesn't quite fit right? See that? That's because the bonnet's not assembled, and if the bonnet was assembled, it would be more like that, and it would be a dead fit. Our flanges are perfect. You can use them as templates. But what'll happen a lot of times when you're getting that bonnet glued up, you want to be about 1/8 of an inch away. 1/4 inch is the absolute max, all right? Sometimes you just can't get there. And when that happens, when you have a wrecked bonnet, it gets more curve in it like this than it should. You've got like a reproduction lower valance that's not shaped quite right. I know it's hard to do at home, especially when you're doing your first one. And a lot of times you just end up with a situation where this is way too far away, and with the bolt holes, you just can't slide it down any closer. What we do for you then is we can provide a special set of custom wider flanges. They will get you down close. Can you see the? I don't know, it's pretty tough. Really. I made to twist them a little. So see this here, and we're above this. So these were designed to give you 3/8 of an inch extra flange. I don't know, maybe on the back side you can see. This gives you more material to get down closer. So instead of having 3/8 of an inch of glue, you can get back down to 1/8 of an inch of glue. We send these out without the holes so you can really position this where you want to. When you do need this to get you out of trouble, you want to do all 4. You might not need this one to be longer, and a lot of times that's the case. You're closer here, and right in this curved area, especially on accident bonnets, you start getting away. But you've got to have these be the same size as this, because they're pretty close together here, and if this one's the standard size, let's just pretend, it was this, it really shows that you've got a wider flange. But if you make all 4 of these wider, it doesn't really show up that that's what you're doing, and you can really get yourself out of a lot of trouble. So call if you need those, okay? That is the end of the flange discussion for 6 cylinders. But if you have a V12, stick around. We're going to talk more about V12s, or if you're just interested in that. Okay, so this is the inner valance for a V12, okay? Now again, we've got our ghost marks. We'll come back to that in a minute. Notice how the flange on a V12 is part of it. It's not bolted on with the screws like on a 6-cylinder. These are a lot harder to work with. I've done 2 V12 bonnets in the past, and they were a pain because of this. This piece is glued directly to the skin on a V12. Also, the V12 has and by the way, this is Series 2 center section, identical to a V12. Series 2s and V12s have the same center section. But on these inner valances for the V12, they are spread much farther out. All right? So, you can see your ghost image of where the flanges were on the 6-cylinder. The V12 is way out here. Okay? And here is the V12 piece that goes down here. And again, it fits better than this. It's just the way it's showing. That goes down there. Now, it kind of looks like it's blocking the air hole, but it's not because the V12 mud shield is solid here. This is just kind of the way it looks. And then the V12's got a snout thing that comes over and mates up against this, and that's where the air comes out. So, on these, see, here's that flange. It's just this little tiny guy because, again, everything is shoved over. And then over here on this side, instead of your big heater flange like this, and your diaphragm flange like that, you've instead just got this little guy right here and this little guy right here because everything's getting shoved over. All right? So that is the end of part 1, the discussion on the flanges. We have all the flanges for all the E-type bonnets. Everything from spot welded on 61s, which are not only wider but a whole different design. Series 1, 1.5, 2. Some of the Series 2 ones are just slightly different. For example, the long one here has a cutout for the AC compressor. We can take care of that here for you, or you can just snip it out at home. Or the Series 3 stuff. So whatever you need on flanges, give us a ring. All right, let's go into the next part.